Faith no more.
Faith no more.
Faith no more.
Faith No More. Known for being a weird and incredibly unique side of metal, graced the early 90s with an album that would only end up living up to that reputation. After the smash hit success of 1989's The Real Thing, featuring Mike Patton's debut for the band and putting Faith No More on the map, they had to do something to keep that ball rolling and continue to cement their wacky legacy. So, what did they do? They went in a different direction than The Real Thing, and crafted a wonderfully weird amalgamation of an album in 1992's Angel Dust. Where do I even really begin with this album? There's so much I can say, yet to me it's so difficult to accurately do this album justice in describing exactly what it is, the direction it went in, what it did for the band, and how it manages to fit in with their discography yet stand out. I guess I'll just start by reinstating what I said a second ago. Faith No More has always been known for bringing a unique twist on metal, and this album signifies that pretty well. Angel Dust is a zany, experimental, and a standout in the Faith No More catalog for several reasons. And I mean, for starters, look no further than these song titles. Looking at the track list, it seems almost whimsical and nonsensical. And then you get into the lyricism of these songs and you can see how this album really sticks out. But truthfully, this is only scratching the surface. There's a lot more to unpack with this album. Let's start simple, shall we? Some key highlights in this album is the energetic guitar work, addicting bass lines, and overall solid instrumentation from the entire band, and Mike Patton's fantastic vocals. It's got a solid set of songs. Some may not slap as hard as some others, but hey, it's still a generally consistent record. Great! I mean, this is all basic stuff you generally want to excel at in your album, right? But as I said before, it goes much deeper than that in several different facets. In an interview with Faith No More around the time of their release of King for a Day, Fool for a Lifetime, they stated that, in a way, Angel Dust was a way to fight back against the pressure to bring another commercial hit after the success of The Real Thing. And you can really see that throughout this record, I reckon. Angel Dust experiments by going in several different directions with the instrumentation and songwriting, while still managing to feel complete and enjoyable to listen to. With the opening few seconds of Land of Sunshine, it kinda sounds like From Out of Nowhere. But as soon as that groovy bass line hits, it becomes apparent that you're getting yourself into a severance from The Real Thing. Angel Dust expands on what we saw in The Real Thing, featuring fun, unpredictable, energetic guitar work. It expands on the groundwork laid for the prevalent, snazzy bass playing, being perhaps slightly less funk-coded, yet still similarly iconic. Mike Patton continues to flex his insane vocal range, and Mike Borden's drumming complements the band's awesome playing by laying down backings that reinforce the urge to just bob my head and jam out to these songs. Like I said before, every track in this record still manages to be really good with the weird twang it offers. It's hard to describe, but it blends this wacky and disjointed writing style together really well with the banger work from each member to create several essential tracks in the Faith No More catalog. Angel Dust put more focus on letting every instrument pull an equal amount of weight instead of just primarily on the guitar riffs. Throughout these tracks, you can really hear how every member plays an important role in making all of these tracks come to life. There's not one that feels more important than the other. Some of the guitar riffs are simple, but in tandem with the other instruments, it ends up working very well despite the simplicity at times. Angel Dust, ironically, feels like a true group effort. Almost like every member throwing different stuff at the wall, going their own little directions and adding their own unique flavor, and yet somehow managed to create a cohesive set of songs. This really serves to add to the experimental and somewhat disjointed vibe this album highlights, and it does a good job at still being fleshed out and realized. Speaking of this, fun Faith No More fact. Well, not really fun, but Faith No More fact. Did you know that the original guitarist for the band, Jim Martin, wasn't too fond of the album focusing less on the guitar work? He wasn't real keen on the general direction Angel Dust went in, unfortunately. This and just general creative differences and rising tension thanks to the drama with the rest of the group in the years leading up to Angel Dust ended up creating a wedge between the members and having Martin split from the band. And drama wasn't even new when it came to Jim Martin and his bandmates. He had his gripes even back during the making of The Real Thing. It's kinda crazy to think how despite all the drama, they still managed to make great music. almost like it put up this deceptive veil hiding the fact that there was ever anything wrong. It really makes you realize how you never truly know what's going on behind the scenes. So yeah, it's a pretty convoluted yet interesting story. It's fun to read up on. Rock and Roll True Stories has a pretty cool video talking about this whole situation. I'll leave a link down in the description if you want to check it out after this. Anyway, it's a bit of a shame to have had him go, but at least he left his mark with The Real Thing and Angel Dust. Tangent aside, my favorite tracks include Land of Sunshine, Midlife Crisis, Everything's Ruined, Kindergarten, A Small Victory, and Crack Hitler. They all showcase the sentiment I mentioned a second ago. All of these tracks are similar in the way that they manage to be so energetic, fun to listen to, and can just instantly put me in a pumped up, chipper mood so well. Like when the chorus and Midlife Crisis hits after those banger verses, or the intoxicating gradual aggression of the bass work in Kindergarten, just to name only a couple out of several examples. And every time the melody kicks in on Crack Hitler, I low-Kirkenuanly, as the youngsters say, hit a little boogie every time. The line has genuinely become a stim of mine. Here's an accurate portrayal of me when that song comes on. These songs are the highlights of the album in my opinion, showcasing the experimental side while also remaining grounded. They all have great riffs, catchy, funky, and fun bass lines, groovy drumming, some feature great keyboard work, and Mike Patton's singing managed to be the absolute cherry on top, wrapping these songs in a nice, strange little package. But it doesn't stop there, no. Those are only a handful of the tracks. Songs like RV, Smaller and Smaller, Malpractice, Be Aggressive, Jizzlobber, and Midnight Cowboy lean into the experimental and weird side of the album and crank it up to 10. They feature unique guitar riffs, interesting song progression, incorporate more keyboard usage, and hell, RV and Midnight Cowboy even step outside of metal. These, of course, serve to reinforce the experimental and distinct motif of this record, on top of the rest of the album. Listening to Angel Dust top to bottom is almost like a fever dream, but it's not super disorienting even with how disjointed and all over the place the album is. Which, in a way, is a sign of a successful experiment of an album, I'd argue. You know, Angel Dust kinda makes me wonder what Saturday Night Wrist would be like if Deftones didn't, hate each other at the time. Now, I like Saturday Night Wrist for what it is. Not only did it give us a few Deftones essentials, but I also just enjoyed for being in the crosshairs of this weird little rough patch in the band's career. It's a unique album. Truthfully, I wouldn't change it, but I digress. Anyway, in an album as crazy as Angel Dust is, there's bound to be a couple tracks that don't hit the mark as hard for me, unfortunately. Malpractice is one I've never really gotten behind. RV, Smaller and Smaller, and Be Aggressive I typically don't revisit often when I turn to this album. I don't dislike these songs. I think RV is kind of funny, in fact. I just think they're outshined by other tracks on this record. But hey, even despite these lower moments on the album, Angel Dust still manages to be an enjoyable listen with several great tracks. I do want to take a second to talk about Jizzlobber though. When I first heard Jizzlobber, I wasn't really into it. I thought it was weird and a little too disjointed. It's quite an odd song, but it has ended up growing on me. Throughout most of the song, I'm vibing, the guitar is slapping, and I'm like, alright, yeah, this is pretty cool actually. I also like the idea behind the transition into the organ in the end. I think it was a nice little way to end such a unique track. It took me a few re-listens, but I came around. Every now and then I might throw it on if I'm feeling especially weird that day, but ultimately it's still not reaching a top 5 spot on this album for me. I also want to take a second to talk about Midnight Cowboy. I like it as a closer. I think it works because after a roller coaster of a record, it was nice to end with something a bit more subdued and lax. Something a little easier to digest. It's like taking a Pepto-Bismol after eating Taco Bell or something. It's a chill track, and especially after the bombshell of Jizzlobber, it's a welcome addition. Once again, reshaping the album, this time right before it closes out. To reiterate in much simpler terms, this album is cool. Angel Dust is a distinct project from a distinct band, and with Angel Dust, Faith No More managed to heavily experiment with their music, taking it in a fresh direction while still managing to create a noteworthy record with several bangers. The tone on this album is great, and it complements the songs incredibly. Angel Dust is a good showcase of every member's skill working together to make an album quite distinct, even for a band like Faith No More. I know I've said this a few times already, but man, Mike Patton's singing is just amazing. Such a skilled vocalist, man. I honestly don't feel like I gave him enough credit in this video. His lyricism and range throughout this album do so much to not only make these songs great, but also contribute to the strange nature of Angel Dust. And really, I gotta hand it to the rest of the band too. They all had noteworthy performances across the board here that added several layers of flavor throughout the tracks. And despite the drama with Martin, they pulled through for this album. Angel Dust is definitely worth a listen, especially if you're into more out there forms of metal. And even if you're really not into more out there forms of metal, I'd say it's still worth a listen as there's several songs that are still appealing with Faith No More's distinct nature. That just about wraps it up, ladies and gentlemen. What do you think about Angel Dust? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to let me know. Until next time, take care.